In 1965, archaeologists in China discovered a perfectly preserved 2,400-year-old weapon. Do us a favor and click that like button, also subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell to be inspired by this heartwarming stories several times a day. Central China, 1965. A team of archaeologists are exploring a network of subterranean tombs when they locate an ancient waterlogged casket. Prizing it open, they find a human skeleton and a sealed wooden box. Within that box is a sort of beautifully crafted instrument that no one had set eyes on for some 2,400 years. Swords have long represented power within human societies. For warriors of so many cultures and times, swords have been seen to symbolize strength, chivalry and masculinity as well as war. Indeed, this is reflected in the plethora of hero myths that have survived through the ages, from King Arthur and Excalibur to the Greek myth of Perseus. Specifically, the so-called Sword of Goujian discovered in the Chinese tomb in 1965 is an incredible cultural treasure. Its workmanship is sublime and its physical properties are extraordinary. And its discovery in modern times has allowed historians to take a look back into an ancient world. The sword was uncovered in the province of Hubei, whose name means north of the lake, a reference to the expansive Lake Dongting in Hunan province. The Hubei area was inhabited by humans during Neolithic times, and is considered to be one of the birthplaces of Chinese civilization. Naturally, Hubei province has a rich and intriguing archaeological record. At its heart, the province consists of a sprawling, ultra-fertile alluvial plain called Jiangnan. The plain is surrounded by several mountain ranges including the Jing, Daba, Wu and Wudang mountains, with the highest peak climbing to more than 10,000 feet. The Yangtze River runs through Hubei, with one of its larger tributaries, the Han River, joining it in the Jiangnan Plain. The plain is also punctuated by numerous lakes, giving Hubei the moniker Province of Lakes. Additionally, due to its many hydroelectric dams, it has a high number of artificially created reservoirs. In fact, the region is currently home to the largest dam in the world, in terms of electrical output, the Three Gorges Gravity Dam on the Yangtze. The Sword of Goujian was found during a survey of the Zhang River Reservoir's second aqueduct, which is located in the city of Jingzhou. This is a 2,000-year-old hub of culture and history that was once the illustrious capital of the state of Chu. This was a kingdom which lasted for 411 years, and saw a succession of 20 kings. While investigating a section of aqueduct in Jiangling County, the archaeologists discovered a series of 50 tombs apparently constructed during the Chu era. And so in October 1965 they commenced digging. Over the next 3 months, the team would go on to recover a haul of more than 2,000 artifacts. The casket containing the Sword of Goujian was discovered in a tomb situated around 4.3 miles from the ruined city of Ying. This was another old capital of Chu, located close to contemporary Jingzhou. The newly discovered sword attracted international media attention, and was arguably the most important discovery of the entire dig. The sword, it transpired, was forged during the so-called Spring and Autumn period. This was a time in the history of China which lasted from 771 to 476 BC. The name comes from a set of records written during that time which describe the affairs of the state of Lu. Known as the Spring and Autumn Annals, these records contain accounts of major events in the region, such as battles, marriages, deaths and rituals. Traditionally thought to have been assembled by the pivotal Chinese philosopher Confucius, the annals are a key historical source. In fact, they are regarded as one of the 5 classics of Chinese literature. The Spring and Autumn period began in 771 BC, with the destruction of Hajing, the capital of western Zhou. Defeated by the Quanrong, the Zhou king escaped to the east, and founded the Eastern Zhou dynasty in the capital city of Luoyi. However, his power over the region was far from absolute. In order to hold his empire together, the Zhou king had relatives and loyal generals manage parcels of it as their own fiefdoms, which then gradually evolved into separate states. The 12 most powerful states were known as the 12 vassals. They met frequently to strategize and collaborate, particularly in matters of warfare. But as time went on, the kingdoms began to quarrel among themselves. Warfare in Hubei led to the gradual establishment of numerous small states, transforming the map of the region. In fact, some 148 states were noted in the Spring and Autumn Annals, but this was reduced to just 20 by the end. Naturally, the period was marked by ongoing technological developments, particularly in the production of weapons. Some fine swords were designed and forged during this era, often over a number of years. The sword of Gaojian is one such weapon, itself a product of tremendous skill and labor. The sword of Gaojian is 21.9 inches long and weighs just a little below 31 ounces. Tapering to a pointed tip, its blade is 1.8 inches in width at its base. The hilt of the sword, or in other words, its handle, measures up at some 3.3 inches long. The surface of the blade on both sides is etched with diamond patterns. The hilt is lightly embellished with blue stones, it has silk bindings, and its rounded pommel consists of some 11 circles which share the same center. Great care was seemingly taken in the design and construction of this sword. But what makes it truly special is its remarkable state of preservation. Despite having spent more than 2,000 years in a water-soaked tomb, it was found completely untarnished as well as being deadly sharp. Indeed, researchers found it quite capable of slicing through a pile of 20 sheets of paper. The sword's airtight sheath helped protect it from the elements, but its metallurgical composition also contributed to its longevity. The blade consists mainly of copper, giving it flexibility, but its edges contain extra tin, which gives them an enduring sharpness. Traces of sulfur throughout also reportedly help to protect it against tarnishing. The owner of the sword is named specifically in 2 columns of engraved script on both sides of the blade. The writing is a type of seal script known as bird worm, after the fuzzy strokes that define its characters. Seal script derived from so-called oracle bone script, and was in popular use throughout the spring and autumn period. The inscriptions on the sword reveal that it once belonged to a local king. King of Yu, it says on one side of the blade. Made this sword for his personal use, it says on the other. Of course, the words do not specify exactly which King of Yu made this sword. The Kingdom of Yu was a regional power that lasted for approximately 160 years, until its annexation by Chu in 334 BC. Some 9 different kings ruled over the state during that time. So in order to determine the sword's owner, a group of historians started to share their theories in a series of written letters. After several weeks of discussion, the scholars began to develop a broad sense of the sword's history. It is believed that it belonged to Gaojian, a warrior king famed for his grit and determination in difficult times. In fact, Gaojian participated in the last great war of the age, and is thought by some to have been one of the 5 hegemons. The 5 hegemons were essentially a succession of regional warlords, who had the power to mobilize the considerable military resources of the Zhou Empire. In effect, they were responsible for maintaining peace and unity throughout the region. And they were tasked with defending it from outside aggression. But before he could become a hegemon, Gaojian first had to prove himself worthy. Inheriting the Yu crown from his father Yunchang, Gaojian became king in 496 BC, and immediately faced an existential challenge. King Helu of Wu, a neighboring state and long-running enemy of Yu, perceived vulnerability in the Yu court, and gathered his armies for an attack. The feud between Yu and Wu was rooted in a failed diplomatic strategy that ought to have tied the 2 kingdoms, the marriage of a Yu princess to a Wu prince. But the marriage failed. And when the princess fled to her home country, it caused enough bad blood to start a war. However, King Helu's opportunistic attack turned out to be a grave misstep. At the Battle of Zuli, he was roundly defeated by Yu and left with mortal injuries. Before dying, he instructed his son Fuchai to take revenge for his defeat, thereby committing future generations to the cycle of war. Never forget Yu, he apparently told him. 3 years later, Wu and Yu faced off again. But this time, it was Wu who emerged victorious, and he even took Gaojian prisoner. However, Gaojian was not executed or even kept in a locked cell. Instead, he was forced to suffer the symbolic indignity of acting as Fuchai's attendant. His ordeal lasted just 3 years, before Fuchai allowed him to return home. His royal power restored, Gaojian assembled a team of seasoned counselors and diplomats to help strengthen his kingdom. At the same time, he began pursuing a strategy of weakening Wu and its infrastructure with unofficial inducements and conspiracies. There is an old Chinese idiom said to partly refer to Gaojian's dogged persistence, sleeping on sticks and tasting gall. During his reign, Gaojian did not indulge himself in worldly extravagances. Instead, he ate as simply as the common folk, and even forced himself to consume bile as a reminder of his captivity in Wu. In the end, Gaojian's persistence paid off. According to a historical chronicle written by the Han Dynasty in 94 BC known as the Shiji, a decade of focused statecraft had transformed Yu into a regional powerhouse. After 10 years of reforms, it says, the state is rich, the warriors well rewarded. Before striking at the Wu capital, Gaojian had waited for Fuchai to guide his armies northward, for a separate confrontation with the state of Kai. The attack was a success, and Gao Jian even succeeded in killing Yu, the crown prince of Wu. Then, in 473 BC, Gao Jian again laid siege to the capital. This time the city endured for 3 years, then fell. Gao Jian was known for some bizarre and terrifying tactics on the battlefield. Indeed, it is said that he would fill his front lines with self-destructing soldiers. Their function seems to have been to frighten the enemy by committing suicide, sacrificing themselves in a spectacle by slicing their own throats. Despite Fuchai having shown him clemency years before, Gao Jian refused to accept Fuchai's surrender, and he was therefore forced to kill himself. Then, upon assuming control of Wu, Gao Jian purged the Wu court by executing its scholars. In what was perhaps a wise yet undoubtedly cruel move, the triumphant King Gao Jian did not spare his enemies. Gao Jian reigned over the kingdom of Yu for 31 years until his death in the year 465 BC. Around 10 years later, the wider region entered a new phase of history known as the Warring States period. This was a time typified by an intensification and escalation of interstate conflicts. In 334 BC, 6 generations after the reign of Gao Jian, King Wu Jiang of Yu was readying to invade Kai. The king of Kai, however, dispatched a diplomat to convince him to attack Chu instead. The attack failed, Wu Jiang was defeated, and the kingdom of Yu was subsequently conquered by Chu. The Warring States period continued until 221 BC. This was when the state of Qin conquered all 6 of its major enemies, and China was unified under Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin. The Qin dynasty was short-lived, lasting just 15 years, but it introduced a new form of Chinese imperialism that lasted until 1912. Today, the sword of Gao Jian is currently on display in Hubei Provincial Museum. In 1994 it was lent to a museum in Singapore, but it was accidentally damaged. Since this incident, the sword has been added to a list of artifacts that are not allowed to be removed from China. Meanwhile, in 1983 archaeologists discovered a remarkable companion piece while digging and jangling a spear belonging to King Fuchai of Wu. Like the sword of Gao Jian, the spear of Fuchai is engraved with bird worm script. Belonging to King Fuchai of Wu, it says. Made for his personal use, the spear. Hubei has a particularly rich cultural and historical legacy. Indeed, priceless artifacts found there, such as the sword of Gao Jian, recall a distant past filled with kings and warriors. And who knows what other archaeological treasures may be waiting to be unearthed in the area in the future. We hope you enjoyed the video. Please let us know which one of the stories you found the most interesting. And if you liked the video, please click on the subscription button and turn on notification, so you will be the first to know when we put out a new video. We thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next time.